Hi everyone, welcome back to NoScript. So let's solve today's daily LeetCode challenge, which is reverse linked list. So we are given a head of a linked list. We need to reverse the list, and we need to return the reversed list, right? So the question is very straightforward, very simple, right? So let's say we are given 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we need to just reverse it, right? One important thing over here is that we don't need to print the linked list in the reverse order. We have to actually reverse the linked list. Say for example, let's suppose at any moment if I'm at 2, and if I'm really asking you what is the next of 2. So in the original case, the next of 2 is 3. But here in this case, if I ask you what is the next of 2, so it will actually be reversed, and that will be 1 actually, right? I hope the problem statement is clear. So let's try to solve it. So here I have taken one list, right? 368215, and let's try to reverse it, right? So the like one simple solution for to solve this problem can be like you can store the address of each node in the stack. So let's say for example, first you will like store 3. You are basically storing the actual node address, right? Then 3, then 6, and then 8, and then 2, and then 1, and then 5, right? So now you can see like at the very top you will be having 5, right? So now you can start popping from that stack, and then basically you will first pop 5, then you will pop 1 and append next to 5, then you will pop 2, so you will append next of 1 as 2. Similarly, like you can do that, right? So this is a very simple, like that will be a very simple approach. But here the point is that you are definitely taking big of n time, right? But you are taking space as well, right? So you will be taking big of n space to store all of the nodes address in the stack, right? But we need to do it without actually using space, right? So to do that, it's very simple. First of all, what we'll do, we'll basically take 3 pointers, right? So we'll be taking a previous pointer, and we will be taking a next pointer, right? And we will be taking a current pointer. So initially what will happen, your current pointer will be pointing to the head of the node, and your previous and next both will be pointing to null, right? So they initially both will be pointing to null. Great. Now what will happen, so current is pointing to the head of the node, previous and next is pointing to null. Now what we have to do is, see, just try to understand. Ideally what should happen, this current should point to null, right? And null is basically pointed by previous, right? So what we'll do, we will say uh, before that, even like let's do one thing. What we'll do, like we will take this next variable, and we will say okay, next will always be pointing to the next current dot next, right? So next will always be pointing to the next node of the current. And now we will actually start our approach, right? So what we have done so far is we are saying that okay, next will always be pointing to the current dot next, right? Great. This is the very first point that we need to make sure. Okay, now as a second point, we need to basically make sure that 3 should point to some null node, right? So what we will do, we'll say okay, this 3 will actually point to previous, because previous is actually over here null. So we are saying that okay, 3 will point to previous. Okay, great. And now what will happen, once, now see, because 3 is now pointing to previous, so you have kind of broken this pointer, right? And why did I do this first step, next is equals to current dot next? That is because so that I cannot, because I cannot lose this next pointer. See, if you are at the current pointer and your now 3 is pointing to the previous, which was initially null, right? Let me just write it. Previous is still pointing to null, right? So your current is basically ultimately pointing to null, which is fine, because this 3 will be at the end, this 3 will be the last node of the linked list, right? When you will actually reverse it. But before that, we need to make sure that we have the pointer to the next particular node, which that is why we have put this statement that next will be pointing to current node next. By doing so, we will always be having the next pointer of the current node, right? Great. Once this is done, now you need to basically make two things. Your previous will start pointing to the current node, and your current node will start pointing to the next node, right? These are the two things that we need to do. So your previous is pointing to this current node, and then current will start pointing to the next node. Great. And now we will do the same step. So let me just remind it once again. So the second step that we did is, first of all, we made sure that okay, next will be pointing to the current node next. Second, what I did is that okay, current dot next will start pointing to previous. This is the second step that I have done. Third step, what I have done is I have done okay, previous now will start pointing to current, and at the same time current will start pointing next node. These are the 4 steps that I have done in this particular first step, right? So now let's repeat them. Okay, now first of all, make sure that you don't lose the next pointer. So make sure that your next start pointing to the current node next, because current is this node, so next will become the current node next. Now make sure that your current is basically pointing to the previous node. So you can see that previous is now 3. So what will happen, this 6 will start pointing to this 3, right? Eventually what you are doing, you are basically breaking this particular pointer. And now as a third step, you will say okay, let's take this previous now, let's take this previous, and this will start pointing to this current node, and your current will start pointing to the next node, right? I hope you understood this. Now let's do once again, repeat the all four steps, right? So once again, what we'll do, we will say, okay, next now we'll start pointing to the current dot next, right? And your current will start pointing to the previous. So previous is now 6 and current is 8. So you are saying that current dot next will actually become 6. Okay. Eventually what you are doing is you are basically breaking this particular pointer. Now what will happen? Once again, you will say, okay, let's take this previous, let's make it point to current, and your current now will start pointing to the next node, right? Let me just make some space. So your current is basically pointing to the next node now. And now once again, you will repeat the same step. So make sure that first you take this next and start pointing to the current dot next. Now you will say, okay, current dot next will start pointing to previous. Eventually you are breaking this pointer, right? And then you are making sure that, okay, let's make this previous point to current, and this current will start pointing to the next. And once again, you will do the same step. So first make sure that your next start pointing to the next node. Make sure your current is pointing to previous now. So you are eventually making this pointer and breaking this one. And now your previous will start pointing to the current node, and your current will start pointing to the next node. And once again, you will do the same step. So your next will actually start pointing to the next of the current. Your current will start pointing to the previous. So your current will start pointing to the previous, which means you are kind of breaking this pointer. And then your previous actually become current, right? And then your current will actually become next, right? And now your current is actually start pointing null. That means you have reversed all the nodes. And finally, either you can return this previous, because previous is the now pointer. So eventually 5 next is 1, 1 dot next is 2, 2 dot next is 8, 8 dot next is 6, and similarly like that, right? And either you can like return this previous, or what you can do is you can do one thing at last. Maybe you can update your head. So now head will start pointing to previous, and then basically you can return a new head. So this is also, either you can do this first and then return head, or you can directly return previous. Both will work fine, right? So let's code it quickly. So what I'm saying is, I'm saying that, okay, we will take 3 pointers. So previous, current, and next, right? My previous will be equal to next, initially will be equal to null, and your current will be initially pointing to head. Now you are saying that, okay, until your current is not equals to null, what you are doing is you are basically doing 4 things. First, make sure that you update the next. So make sure that you don't lose the pointer. So your next will start pointing to current dot next, and now your current will be updated. So current will start like current dot next will start pointing to previous, and then you will update your previous and current. So previous now become current, right? And your current will now become next. Okay. And once this loop is ended, either you can return previous directly, or you can basically update your head first. So let's make head as previous, and then you can return head, new head, right? And now let's try to run this. And in this approach, we are really not taking any extra space. We are just simply updating the pointers. Let's try to submit it, and I hope it will be submitted. And this is it. So yeah, this got submitted. So this is it from my side for this video. I hope you understood this, and I'll see you in the next video. Till then, bye bye.